Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome to Season 12 of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and each week we're hitting the trail through conversations with extraordinary hikers from across the United States and beyond. Fall is one of those magical times to be outdoors. The air is crisp, the trails are lined with golden leaves, and every step feels like an invitation to slow down and soak in the season. This year, I've had the privilege of sitting down with hikers who bring the same richness to their stories. From thru-hikers reflecting on lessons learned, to everyday adventurers chasing larch season, and finding peace on quiet trails, their voices remind us that the outdoors isn't just about reaching summits. It's about connection, reflection, and discovery. So lace up your boots, grab your favorite warm drink for the trail, and get ready. Season 12 is here, and the conversations ahead are as colorful as the fall landscapes we love. We kick off this season with a story that spans deserts, snowfields, and summits. Meet Jackson, trail name Gospel, who just finished his PCT thru-hike this summer. From battling early Sierra snow to chasing northern Washington sunsets, Jackson shares how the trail tested his mind more than his body, the faith that carried him through, and why sunrise on Mount Whitney is worth every frozen step. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Jackson. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. He is part of the 2025 PCT class. His name is Jackson, and he's going to be sharing about his outdoor journey as well as finishing the PCT this year. Jackson, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Yeah, so as you said, my name's Jackson. I grew up in North Carolina, and I'm actually back there now, currently in a PhD program in religious studies. I moved to Utah for college almost 10 years ago now. And I think that's what it did. That's what did it for me in terms of getting into the outdoors, being so close to the mountains, being exposed to these new landscapes. I didn't grow up hiking, but I got into it very quickly after moving out there, and it's been with me ever since.
And I feel like, Utah and Colorado and even the Sierras and the Pacific Northwest, they're kind of like known in not just the United States, but I think the world as like the outdoor meccas. And I think I've said it numerous times on the podcast. Utah on its own can be like a national park as a state. Like even the state parks rival national parks, I feel like. Is there any particular hikes or sections of Utah that really motivated you to get out and explore?
For one, it was just being exposed to all this wilderness land. That's not something you really have out here in the East, at least not where I'm from. And so just having all this wilderness around me was new to me. My freshman year of college, we hiked Mount Timpanogos. It's just under 12,000 feet, big peak in the Wasatch. And it was utter chaos. None of us knew what we were doing, but it was so much fun too. I'd never done anything quite like that in terms of a hike. These days, I love kind of central southern Utah. Some of the areas between Capitol Reef and Boulder, just beautiful areas down there. There's just so much to explore and so much to see, and spend a whole lifetime out there and not see it all.
And, we were talking about this before we started recording, but I do want to congratulate you on finishing the PCT this year. You are about a month removed, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been just over a month now, finished on August 5th.
How are you feeling now, a month removed from the trail, about completing that massive journey?
It's interesting because trail life is so different from day-to-day life that it really feels like its own lifetime. Like in some ways, the things I was doing before the trail feel like they were more recent than the trail itself. It feels like it was so long ago. But I'm starting to make the adjustment back to day-to-day life. I'm starting to get my brain off of walking mode and onto book mode, but it's a process.
I forget what they call it, but don't they call it like hiker blues, where you kind of get off trail after being out there, especially on a thru hike, where it is a bit of an adjustment period to get back into the swing of things. But you did something incredible, because not only did you finish the PCT, but then after you finished, you drove cross country to start school, and you're now fully in school. How's it been, making that switch from being on trail to now full-time student?
Yeah, I've heard it as hiker blues, post-trail depression, all these things for the transition period you have after the hike. I think actually jumping straight into something so quickly has helped with that. I've always been someone who prefers to keep myself busy, and I definitely did that getting off trail. I hit the border on a Tuesday, got off on a Wednesday because you had to hike 30 miles back to the nearest trailhead. I started the drive back to Utah on a Thursday, got back there on a Saturday. Then on Monday, I started the drive across the country, got to North Carolina the next Thursday, and the very next day, Friday, was orientation and classes started on Monday. I would have liked to have actually maybe had more of a week or so to at least, sit down, but beggars can't be choosers, and I'm certainly a beggar in this case. Just glad I was able to make it work.
Now, these next two questions are really tough, and you're more than welcome to elaborate on these. But with the PCT being so long and being so iconic, and I feel like, especially in the last 5 years, there's a lot of great resources for people that are interested in tackling the PCT. What were some of the biggest surprises on trail that maybe you weren't expecting to come across or expecting to experience that you can share with us?
That's a good question. There are so many resources that there's almost too much information now. You can find so much information that you can lead yourself down rabbit holes and get confused. And so for one, I think you will find somebody who has an opinion that will support any kind of opinion you have of the trail. If you think you can start early, you'll find someone who says you can, you'll find someone who says you can't. And so trust your gut on that, I think, it is one thing. So don't let people who are out there fear-mongering try to dictate your hike for you. But I think the biggest surprise for me was actually, it was easier than I thought physically and harder than I thought mentally. I thought it would be the other way around. But after a while, your body gets used to it, and then it's just a mental game. Can you handle getting up every day and walking? Because some mornings you wake up and you get to walk. Other mornings you wake up and you have to walk. And it depends on the terrain, depends on your mood, depends how much sleep you got. And so not every day is going to be perfect. And you know that going in mentally, but that's different once you start to experience it and it becomes your day-to-day life.
I love that a lot of the PCT hikers are sharing that experience that, it's great to be on trail, but just like the trail itself, there's peaks and valleys that you go through, both physically, emotionally, mentally. And I think that's just part of the journey. And, you've been recapping since you've been back the journey itself on your Instagram. And I know right now we're currently catching up with the desert section in Southern California. But for you, looking back at things now, is there a particular section that you would call your favorite or most defining stretch?
I think those are two different questions. I'll tackle the most defining first. We entered the Sierra, the group I was with, absurdly early, more than a month before you're typically recommended to do so. And so the conditions there, I think, were definitely what ended up defining the hike. Just, days without seeing dry ground, so much snow, wind, and cold, but so beautiful. And it was such a challenge. I think that really defined the hike. I think when I'm trying to explain what my hike was like to other people in the PCT class of 2025, I think the easiest way I could convey that was by saying, yeah, we entered the Sierra on May 7th, and their eyes usually get big, and they're like, why did you do that? And had our reasons. I had to get back in time for school, and I didn't want to flip-flop. So I'd say that was the most defining. Favorite, Northern Washington was awesome. It's maybe a cliche to say save the best for last, but I think the trail really did. Part of that is because the Sierra was harder to enjoy in parts because of the conditions, but I had Northern Washington in prime conditions, wildflowers everywhere, beautiful sunsets. Just rugged, beautiful terrain. Yeah, I really enjoyed the last week and a half of trail, especially.
Oh man, that warms my heart. Anytime I get to speak to a PCT hiker and they say the Pacific Northwest, and especially Washington, is one of their favorite sections, I always tell people, if the goat rocks don't get you, just wait until North Cascades, because that is a whole different side of Washington that I think a lot of people don't visit. I don't know if it's this year, but previous years it was the least visited national park in the country, which is shocking to me. But I'm glad that the North Cascades was one of your favorite sections, because it's definitely one of my favorite stretches of wilderness in our state and in our region.
Yeah, I love the North Cascades. Probably with them fourth on my national parks list, just behind the three we'll talk about later, but they're right up there. Beautiful area.
Now, one thing that I'm also noticing in recent years is I had this preconceived notion that you had to be like an advanced hiker, advanced through hiker in order to tackle, the PCT, the AT, the CDT. But in recent years, speaking with other through hikers, I'm noticing that a lot of them are early on in their backpacking or through hiking journey. And I think that's one thing that caught our attention is reading on your About Me section. You really didn't get into the outdoors until college. Is that right?
That's right. And we talked about that a bit with moving to Utah and how that did it for me. I would say I was a fairly experienced backpacker by the time I hit the PCT, but a lot of the people who were out there, a lot of the people who finished definitely weren't. And I think that is a misconception. I think anybody can pull off a thru hike as long as you're willing to, be patient with yourself and to play the mental game. You can do it. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think I had that preconceived notion, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you came across and hiked with people that were new to the backpacking journey or didn't have that experience, because I think it might be a shared misconception out there that you need to tackle, X amount of miles in order to tackle the PCT.
I think that's fair. I don't think there's any way you can really comprehend what you're getting yourself into when you start. And I think trying to picture yourself walking all the way to Canada at the beginning is just going to overwhelm you. So yeah, take it one day at a time, get as far as you can and work from there.
And then another thing that we noticed is in your bio, it says big Jesus guy, and you're diving deep into the New Testament for your PhD. How did your faith intersect with your PCT journey?
I think thru hiking and backpacking in general is an inherently kind of vulnerable thing that you do. You put yourself out there and you put yourself at the mercy of the elements, and it forces you to recognize your own limitations, which I think is a valuable religious sort of experience because it helps you to understand your relationship with the divine more. I think recognizing your limitations and your capabilities helps you recognize your place in the world and helps you recognize, if you're a religious person, how you stack up with God and how your relationship with him is a part of your day-to-day life and a part of the way you understand yourself.
And I know this is going to be a tough question because I feel like you probably had many of these moments on the trail, but can you share a few of the moments on the trail that you felt were spiritually transformative?
There was a section towards the beginning where I was trying to make a big life decision. I was trying to decide where to come for school. Actually, I had a couple of offers from different programs, and I was hiking alone at that point, partially because I wanted some solitude and some time to pray. And I took the chance to kind of just pray out loud as I walked. It was out there in the desert alone. It was a very spiritual experience, and I felt like I got the answers that I needed to get. That's a very biblical experience, going out to the desert to try to commune with God. And so it was nice to get a bit of that.
And one thing we also noticed is that you got a chance to live in Israel for a semester. And the Middle East and Israel, I feel like has some really special places. And I'm wondering, for you, how was it living in Israel and seeing that landscape compared to your time here in the States?
Yeah, there is a trail that goes across Israel. I haven't done it. I was there for school, so we weren't out in the outdoors a lot. We were there a decent amount for field trips and such. But I think there's something special about being able to put mental image to these places that I'd read about in scriptural stories. And then the landscape really does, I think, affect the way that you read these stories. As I said, like that kind of image of the prophet going out into the wilderness. Yeah, that Israeli, the Negev, the desert out there it's an image that sticks with you. And then I think another real takeaway was the sense of community and kind of the social aspect of religion. In America is a country that has it's culturally Protestant in a lot of ways, and religion is thought of as something kind of private and individual. That's not the case with a lot of religious movements. And I think that sort of social element of it is something that you can also apply to the trail, because that was a big surprise for me on trail is the people and the shared experience and how you're all kind of going through something together. That's a bit of a religious experience too, I think a lot of people would argue. And I think I first really started to understand that side of religion out there in the Middle East among the mosques and synagogues and churches.
One thing that I think a lot of day hikers, backpackers, and thru hikers are on a similar journey to check off as many of our national parks as possible. And you've done an amazing job already crossing off 33 out of the 63 national parks here in the United States. And you said that Yosemite, Glacier, and Death Valley have been your favorites so far. Can you share a little bit about what makes each one stand out for you?
Yeah, they're all special and different in so many ways. I think Yosemite is utterly unique. There's not really anywhere else quite like it in the world. I compare it to Zion sometimes. I say, imagine Zion, but make the cliffs taller, wide, and covered in waterfalls. And that gets you a sense of the idea, but there really isn't anywhere quite like it with the giant slabs of exposed granite, the waterfalls. I love the waterfalls. Spring's my favorite time to visit Yosemite, and I was able to make it there towards the end of May on the PCT, which is perfect. Well, for the waterfalls, not so for the snow, but you win some, you lose some. And I love the backcountry out there. And I really, really love the way that the white granite catches the alpenglow in the morning and the evening. And so you get that throughout the Sierra Nevada, but I think Yosemite is a special example of that. Glacier is amazing too. I think the sense of scale you get there with the giant glacial valleys. I love the wildlife. You have the grizzlies up there, which is both scary and awesome as a hiker. The wildflowers are amazing. And there's some great, just absolutely great hiking up there. I've yet to do a hike out there that I don't enjoy. And those two are national parks that typically make people's, greatest hits list. Death Valley is the one that tends to surprise them. But I think Death Valley really is unlike anywhere else on Earth. When you go to the desert in Utah, you're going to see juniper trees. You're going to see sagebrush. When you go to Death Valley, there is absolutely nothing. No plants. You could be on Mars for all you know. And it's huge. I mean, the park is the size of Connecticut, and there's so much to explore. And the sense of scale there is absolutely off the charts. If you want to feel small, go to Death Valley. It's hard for you to comprehend any sense of scale. And there's a variety of sand dunes, you have salt flats, you have large mountains, you have dry lake beds with rocks that move. I mean, there's so much to see out there, and you could spend a lifetime there and barely scratch the surface.
There's a beauty to the desert that is just remarkable. Even though you think there's not much growing there or there's not much to see, like once you take a closer look, there's a whole thriving ecosystem. And Death Valley is definitely high on my list to check off in 2025 or 2026. Those are 3 stunning national parks, and I can understand why they stood out for you. Now, Jackson, you've been able to do some hiking throughout the Southwest and the West Coast, everywhere from Havasupai to Moab to the Tetons, and kind of like Death Valley, maybe being an underrated park. Has there been any other underrated parks or trails that you've been able to experience that you think maybe people are overlooking and they should, give it a shot?
It's a tricky balance between trying to keep the hidden gems hidden and also trying to share things with friends and get the word out about these places. Some of the places that I think may not get the attention they deserve, I think Death Valley is certainly one of them. There's so much national forest and BLM land out there in the Colorado Plateau. I love just going out there on these dirt roads and kind of exploring. There's great camping, especially when you get this intersection of the Red Rock country and these alpine forests. There's some great stuff in central Utah as you drive south from Capitol Reef along Boulder Mountain before you get to town of Boulder and you get down into Escalante. That's an area that I think it gets a fair amount of attention, but probably not what it deserves.
That southern section of Utah, like Grand Escalante in its own right, is definitely high on my bucket list. There's so many great spots to not just hike through, but backpack. Definitely, I feel like people know about it, but I feel like maybe the trails aren't as widely reviewed as some of the other trails in and around Utah.
Yeah, I think it slips through the cracks of it because you have the Mighty Five, the national parks, and Escalante is a national monument, so it doesn't get quite the attention. But there's so much to see still. And that also holds true for some of the areas in southeastern Utah, south of Moab, as you get into the other districts of Canyonlands and as you just kind of approach the Arizona border. There's just so much out there, and you could spend so much time out there and not see it all. And that Red Rock country is really unique. You don't really get that really anywhere else in the world. You get pockets here and there, but that's a very Southwestern American kind of experience out there.
Everything from Page to Moab is just another world. One thing that caught our attention is back in 2022, you were able to thru-hike the John Muir Trail, but you did it in a unique fashion, and that was in Tevas. Looking back, what stood out about that hike for you? And did that experience maybe plant the seed for you to take on the PCT, or was the PCT already percolating for you?
Well, I think the first and biggest lesson from the JMT is do not do a thru-hike in sandals. I'd backpacked in sandals before that, but it does not give you the kind of support you need for something like that. And sure enough, I developed some IT band issues not long into the trail. Not to mention going over snow in sandals and stuff like that. The one plus side was river crossings were very easy. No wet shoes. Well, I guess they were wet, but they dried quickly. Yeah, so the JMT was a great experience, and I was really lucky because that is an almost impossible permit to win. And in fact, I didn't win it. I lost it twice, but then I was able to scoop up a cancellation by just I kept checking to see if there were spots available, and someone canceled and I grabbed it. And I think the JMT was definitely what set me on the path of doing the PCT. It was great to get a sort of bite-sized piece of thru-hiking to make sure I actually liked this kind of thing. By the end of the JMT, I felt like I could keep going, and I figured that was a good sign. And so I decided that if I ever had a window, I would try to do the PCT. I wasn't sure if the window or opportunity would present itself, but if it did, I knew I wanted to try after the JMT.
One thing that I do want to ask, because you did the JMT and the PCT, what were your experiences summiting Whitney?
Until this year, I used to tell people that the coldest I'd ever been was on top of Mount Whitney on July 10th, 2022, when I did Whitney on the JMT. Now I can say that the coldest I've ever been was on top of Whitney on May 11th, 2025. I love Whitney. Whitney's probably my favorite peak in maybe the world. I mean, it's amazing, the hike, especially if you can come from the backside. It's not nearly as bad of a hike. On the way down, there's a section on the eastern side from Whitney Portal called the 99 Switchbacks. And I thought that was maybe just a cute name. There were probably 93 of them or 105. So on the way down, to kind of keep myself mentally occupied, this is on the JMT, I counted, and sure enough, there were 99 exactly. But I love Mount Whitney. It was a different experience for sure on the JMT versus the PCT. It was cold on the JMT. Like I said, it was the coldest I felt like I'd ever been with the wind chill up there. But there really wasn't any snow. The PCT, I think we were the second or third group of PCT hikers to make it to the top that year. It was ice axe territory. It was absurd and wild and probably a bad idea, but we made it. And so I guess that makes it a good idea.
And Jackson, did you have to do the mountaineering route on the PCT because of the snow level?
No. So the mountaineering route comes up the east side, comes up the front side. We were doing the normal backside route. There's a section with switchbacks where there was a really faint boot track, and you put your spikes on, got your ice axe out, and just took it real slow and steady. You're going up this kind of sideways up, probably a 60, maybe 70 degree slope. It was not the funnest. It did help that on the way up, it was dark, and so you really couldn't see how scary it was. Although I remembered a bit from 3 years ago, which didn't help. But it was definitely a bit of a mountaineering experience, if not the mountaineering route itself.
And I'm glad you mentioned the 99 switchbacks, because I was in that boat too until just right now, where I was like, oh, it's a cute name. It probably isn't 99. It's close, but not 99. And I'm glad you were able to confirm it.
It was exactly 99.
And this is for me and a few other people. We're going to try to tackle Whitney in 2026. What advice would you give to myself and others that are looking to tackle Whitney?
It's going to depend. Are you going to try to do it as a day hike, as an overnighter, from the backside, from the front side? Do you have that figured out?
We're going to shoot to do it as a day hike, try to get up around 2, 3 and summit it and then make it back down to camp.
If I were doing it with you, I would suggest starting even earlier, because if you can make it to the top for sunrise, you are not going to see many better sunrises than what you see up there. You can watch the sun come over the Inyo Mountains to the east, and it lights up the whole desert valley in front of you. And then you can watch the shadow of Whitney kind of stretch across the Sierra to the west. And the way like I said earlier, the way the Sierra Nevada, that white granite catches the sunlight, it's something special. So I would say definitely, if you can make it up there for sunrise, do it. Other advice, again, I've only done one way down the east side because everything else has been from the backside. Bring a water filter. That'll save you a lot of weight instead of having to carry all your water with you. Get a burger at Whitney Portal. I got a burger after the JMT, and it may have just been good because I'd been in the wilderness for 2 weeks. But I thought it was a pretty dang good burger. Very generous on the bacon with it too, if you're into that.
Everybody that has had a chance to experience Whitney at sunrise say it's just a magical experience, and definitely going to keep that in mind, and maybe even start at midnight making the trek up in order to catch sunrise, because I hear it's pretty magical up there.
Yeah, I say do whatever you can to try to get up there for sunrise. That's actually, and then this will be old news by the time this podcast comes out, but on my PCT photo recap, Whitney is tomorrow. So, and some of them turned out, I was happy with the way they turned out.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the post, and we'll link it in the episode show notes so people can quickly take a look, so people can check it out. Now, Jackson, one of the regular segments that we like to do on the podcast is do a deep dive into our guest Instagram feed and highlight a specific post or reel. And the one that caught our attention was from Glacier National Park. It was a super moody, stormy day, but the lake had a striking turquoise color. And you mentioned in the caption that you usually make a trip up to Glacier every summer. But this year, because you were on the PCT, you were able to make it up there. Can you talk about what keeps drawing you back to Glacier year after year?
Well, I would like it to be a yearly tradition. I think that would be great. I don't think it's quite as established as that. It's been the last 3 years. I've been trying to get to Glacier since 2019 or so. And every year something happened and the trip had to cancel. It almost happened. Even the year I did make it up there, things almost got in the way and prevented me from making it. But ever since that first time, it's been kind of a special place for me. And it's a place that I enjoy going to. And so whether it's just for a couple of days or for longer, I love the whole area. Montana is my favorite state in the US. If I could live anywhere, it would be Flathead Valley. Something about it, I don't know, it speaks to me. And so I love spending time not just in the park, but in the surrounding areas, talking to the locals, just seeing what it's like. Again, Yosemite is my favorite park, but Glacier might be my favorite for hiking. There's so many amazing trails and the conditions. I love how green it is up there. I love the lakes. I love the way they catch the light. I love the wildflowers. I love the wildlife. Although that does mean you should probably go with a buddy because, grizzly bears. Yeah, Glacier's a special place. And every time I'm up there, I like the way it makes me feel, I guess.
It's been too long since I've made it out to Glacier, and it's definitely something that I'm hoping to do again here in the next year or two because it is a very special place. And yeah, so many trails from all different levels. You can do some strenuous ones, you can do some easy ones. There's the gorgeous turquoise lakes all over the place that, just are so inviting to jump in, but I imagine are pretty dang cold, but worth the polar plunge. I'm up there with you. Glacier is a very special place, and Montana is one of those other states that for outdoor recreation is just a really special place.
Yeah, and in more of a laid back kind of sense too. I like the culture around the outdoors up there. I like it a lot.
That was it for the regular questions, Jackson. These last 3 questions are questions that we like to ask all our guests. And the first one is, when it comes to end of the hike routines or maybe end of the day when you're on a thru hike or a regular summit routine, is there anything that you tend to do on a regular basis? For a lot of us, it's packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen. And then for a lot of us, it's also that favorite meal afterwards. What do you tend to do when you reach your destination or when you make it back out?
Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about it, like a Summit beer or something. I don't drink, so I'll pack up maybe like a Summit Mountain Dew or something that feels appropriate with the name. Yeah, then, a couple minutes up at the top, taking the view. But when it comes to the post-trail meal, I think that's really where it's at. It's tough to beat a burger, fries, and a shake. Something filling and greasy and caloric. Actually, just before the trail, I had a reel about this, kind of pick up some steam, and it was funny. I think a lot of people can sympathize with that.
I feel like burger is the number one spot when it comes to post-trail food. I always thought maybe pizza was up there, but, the last couple guests I've spoken to, it's a burger. That's what calls their name after, especially a long, strenuous hike. Nothing hits like a good burger if you can find it near the trail or on your way home. Now, Jackson, I'm curious about this response because as a thru hiker, you really dialed in your pack in order to do the PCT, but was there a luxury item that you tended to pack that fell outside of the essentials?
Yeah, I think this one's actually fairly obvious for me. It was the camera. For me, that's a non-negotiable. If I'm going to go out there, I want to be able to try to capture what I'm seeing. It never does it justice, but I can try. And then I love coming home and editing the pictures and posting them and sharing them with people and having them to look back on. It's a great way to relive the trail. So camera, for sure, is my luxury item.
Yeah, and we are extremely thankful that you were able to pack that camera because the moments that you've been able to share with us thus far, some of the sunsets and sunrises that you've been posting are just incredible. And that's the desert landscape that you're currently on, and you're about to hit the Sierras. And I can only imagine the pictures are just going to get more epic. And I'm really excited to see what you get a chance to share with us in the coming weeks.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to share them.
And then, we're in the beginning stages of fall when we're recording this, and there's still plenty of hiking left in 2025. But is there any hiking or travel goals that you have for the remainder of the year, or maybe something that you're looking forward to in 2026?
It's a good question. I haven't had a chance to think about it a whole lot because my life post-trail got busy very quickly. And it's harder now that I'm on the East Coast. I can't just go walk in my backyard and be in the mountains like I could in Utah and Arizona. But I'll be back in Utah in October for a friend's wedding and a football game, and I'll try to get to the outdoors then for a bit. And then I'm excited to kind of explore my home state with this new outdoor lens, because when I was growing up out here, that wasn't a priority of mine because I didn't grow up in a very outdoorsy family. And so now that I'm back here, I need to find a way to kind of integrate my hobbies into this new place. And North Carolina is, as far as states in the East go, it's one of the best with the mountains and the beach and everything in between. So I need to get some new things on the schedule here once I dial in my class routine.
Well, looking forward to what you're able to share with us in the remainder of 2025. That was it for the regular questions, Jackson. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. We're going to give you some hiking related topics, and we're also throwing in some backpacking through hiking questions for you, but you're more than welcome to say both or neither, and feel free to elaborate on your decision if you like. But the first one is, do you prefer summer hiking or fall hiking?
Okay, I'm glad you said I can elaborate, because if you're looking for simple one-word answers, you probably shouldn't have asked somebody who's getting a PhD in the humanities to answer these questions, because we're not known for brevity or for, omitting nuance. I think I'm going to go with fall. It's hard. This is hard. But there's something special about fall, because fall to me feels like kind of a transition zone between summer and winter, and it feels fleeting. And for that reason, it almost seems more valuable. It's more exciting, and you don't want to waste it. Summer can drag on, and I love summer. I think I've got to go with fall.
And this next one's another tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Yeah, well, if you play your cards right, you don't have to pick. I think the best hikes have both. That said, if we're talking about hiking, I think most summits you need to hike to get to. There are a lot of waterfalls you can drive to. So I'll go with summits for this one, just because that gets you to more places.
And I'm curious about this response on this one, but if you had a choice to tackle a summit, would you choose a trail with switchbacks, or would you rather go straight up?
Switchbacks all the way. I mean, it's in my Instagram handle, so I feel like I'd have to change my name if I'd said no. That's one of the real virtues of the PCT compared with, say, the AT, is that the PCT is graded for pack animals, and it takes these, even though you go up incredible and steep slopes, it takes them very gently, and so you never really have to slow down. It doesn't kill you to go uphill on a PCT.
Yeah, from the people I've talked to, there's very few and far between switchbacks on the AT. They just go the straight and narrow route up to some of these summits, which is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know that I could have been doing 35-mile days on the AT, but on the PCT, that was definitely possible.
And this next one's a bit of a controversial one, but trek poles or freehand?
I don't usually use trekking poles when I'm day hiking, but when I'm backpacking, I'm big on them. You can take some weight off your knees, keeps your arms involved. It gives you something to do with your hands. I end up just kind of I look like a little cowboy with my hands on my belt or my waist strap if I don't have something to do with them. I like having the poles. Even though I'll spend a lot of the time holding them in one hand and on my phone or something in the other, I think it's nice to have them, especially for that downhill. Save your knees.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because I tried the second half of summer to go without trekking poles, and I had a hard time figuring out what to do with my hands. And especially when it comes to taking group photos or pictures, it's what do I do with my hands in this photo? Normally, you just rest the trekking poles or raise the trekking poles, but the last couple hikes I've been like you. I just carry them just to have them if I need them. If not, they're just in my hand if needed.
Yeah, and they make them so light these days that it's not a big pain to just have them, even if you don't end up using them.
For sure. And this next one's about your footwear. And I think I know the answer to this one, but do you use trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
For the PCT, I use trail runners. I think lighter is better. But actually, when we were in the Sierra in our group, I had trail runners. So one of the guys had something kind of in between a trail runner and a boot. And then one of us had boots. The problem with boots, they're waterproof, which is great. But the minute they get wet, they're waterproof from the inside out too. And they don't get dry. And her feet were cold and wet almost the entire Sierra. Whereas my feet would get wet, but then they would dry very quickly. And I also just prefer having something light on my feet. I don't like having that extra weight down there. It didn't seem like the extra support made much of a difference. So I would go with trail runners.
And this next one's a tough one too, but when it comes to trail systems, do you prefer a loop trail or an out and back trail?
I'm a sucker for novelty, so give me the loop. I want to see new scenery. I don't mind an out and back. Done plenty of those, but I'll go with a loop.
And then this next one is about trail conditions. If you had to choose between these two trail conditions, would you prefer a muddy trail or a rocky trail?
Rocky. I think you can navigate over rocks. If you know what you're doing, if you have a decent sense of balance, you can't navigate over mud. You're just going to have to slog through it. Plus, scenery tends to be better in rocky areas than muddy areas, I think, as a general rule.
That's a good point, yeah. This next one, Jackson, I think is going to be a tough one for you. But if you had to choose, would you rather catch sunsets or sunrises on your hikes?
I'm a sunrise guy through and through. I know there's not really an aesthetic difference. They look kind of the same, but I like it gradually getting lighter. There's something special about a sunrise. You tend to have it, you're more likely to have it to yourself. It feels special to kind of get up and be one of the only people watching it. And there's something symbolic about the beginning of a new day. I'm a sunrise guy through and through.
And this next one is another difficult one, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
That is tough. Give me the wildflowers, but I am a sucker for some fall colors too. I feel like wildflowers are less finicky than fall colors though. Fall colors are tricky. Different trees do it at different times. I guess that same is true for flowers. But I don't know. I always have trouble timing fall colors just right, whereas wildflowers tend to, I think, they're a bit more forgiving. They stick around for a bit longer.
That's very true, because depending on the variety of tree, it might be early in the season for the fall colors to change, or if it's a larch, the larch up here in Washington have a very specific short window. So I get what you're saying with fall colors. It's hard to time it right.
And I should be clear that I've never been in larch country in the fall, and that could change my opinion. If I had a chance to see some of these larches that might push fall colors, might tip the scale in their favor. But that's an adventure for another time.
And then this next one is a new one for season 12. One thing that I've noticed in the last couple of years, especially on backpacking trips and through hikes, is making sure that you're getting your electrolytes. And there's so many different varieties of electrolytes out there that you can choose from. But for you, do you prefer tablets or powdered electrolytes, or even just like regular drinks like Powerade or Gatorade?
Yeah, so on the JMT, I took tablets. I got two different kinds. I think there was a lemon lime and like a cola flavored. And I decided I didn't want to get sick of one. And so I took them out of their packaging and I alternated them in the different packets and I sent them in my packages. Now the problem with that is they sat next to each other for, a month ahead of time. So what ended up happening is I just had a bunch of lemon lime cola flavored electrolytes, which is not a great combo. They shouldn't be equivalent. They shouldn't be 50-50. So I'm going to go with packets. I was never disappointed by the packets I had on the PCT. And there's so much variety. There's so many different brands, so many different flavors. You can mix and match.
I was wondering if you were going to say it was a pleasant surprise, the cola and the lemon lime flavor, but it just didn't mix.
It was an unpleasant surprise. And then you're stuck with it.
Yeah. Now, Jackson, these last three are specific to backpacking and through hiking, and I believe that you experienced all of these, but if you had to choose, would you choose bug bites or sunburn?
Sunburn, absolutely. Sunburn, it kind of vaguely aches, but it's not super painful. And for me, at least, it goes away and it becomes a tan pretty quickly. I have enough Mediterranean ancestry that it doesn't last. Mosquitoes love me. I'm a magnet for them. There was a backpacking trip we went on in Yosemite 4 years ago now. We had to stop at this kind of stagnant pool of water to filter. And at the end, everyone was complaining about bites. And I asked my one friend, how many did you get? She's like, I got 4 bites. Asked the other one, I got 5. I had 19. And they drive you crazy. The itching, mosquito bites, in my opinion, is so much worse. And, sunburn's preventable. Put on your sunscreen, wear a hat. There's only so much you can do. Sunscreen, if you use it right, it's 100% effective. Bug spray is at best 50% effective,
Oh, yeah. There's some backcountry mosquitoes here in Washington that they don't care if you have 100% DEET, they'll still come get you.
I know, I met them.
Yeah, I imagine probably in the North Cascades.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was down in the southern, there was one spot south of Trout Lake that was just awful. And it was the only water around, and I had no choice but to filter and stand there still while they bit me. And,
during the recording, you mentioned both of these, but if you had to choose, would you choose a stream crossing or a snowfield traverse?
It's a good question. This is going to depend on a couple of factors. What's the snow like? Is it early morning or am I post-holing? In the Sierra, we were getting up at 2 a.m. to walk on firm snow. And then with the stream crossing, are we crossing on a log? Is it just a ford? Yeah, help me out here.
Let's go with fording the stream and early morning snowfield traverse.
I'll take the early morning snowfield traverse any day. Yeah, as long as you can walk on top of it, it's not a problem. It's just like the trail. It's when you start sinking it up to your hips. You're playing like Russian roulette. You don't know which step it's going to be, but you're going to fall through at some point. And it's just a matter of trying not to shatter your kneecap every time that happens.
And the last one is, if you had to choose for either a day hike, through hike, or backpacking trip, would you prefer to go ultralight, or would you take at least 1 or 2 luxury items?
It's going to depend on the length of the trip. On a shorter trip, bring the luxury items, doesn't matter. Bring what's going to make your trip more enjoyable for those 2 or 3 days. Maybe you're going somewhere where you want to have the camera, you're going somewhere you want to have a book. Bring it. On a longer backpacking trip, I think it's better to err on the side of lighter. But I will say, there's, the culture now with backpacking is really heavy on ultralight, base weight, shedding pounds and ounces. And it's kind of become it gets a means to its own end. I don't think that's the way you should look at it. And in my mind, the reason to shed weight on a backpacking trip for your base weight is to make yourself more comfortable. And if to do that, you're sacrificing things that are going to make you comfortable, I think you've probably reached the point of diminishing returns. I think it's time to probably stop shedding weight. So you want to find the balance where you find what you can be comfortable without, get rid of that, but don't be light just for its own sake. Be light for the sake of making your trip more enjoyable.
I like that. That's a good response. I think something to keep in mind when looking at your pack list and deciding on what you're going to bring and what you're going to shed. And it's just about balance, like you said.
That's life.
Right? Well, Jackson, that was it for the this or that question. The last question I want to ask you, and I like asking this question to all the thru hikers because I really enjoy hearing the origin story of their trail names. Can you share a little bit about the origin story of your trail name on the PCT?
A couple of weeks in, it was more like a weekend. It didn't take too long. I started to be called Gospel. This one's pretty straightforward. When people found out I was going to get a PhD in the New Testament, specifically working in the Gospel of John, wasn't too big of a leap. I had been offered a few before then. People suggested things. They didn't quite feel right. I liked Gospel because it was a word that everybody knew, but it was also never something I'd heard as a trail name. So it was the perfect amount of unique and personal, but also something that people could get.
Love that. Well, that was it, Jackson, for the questions. If folks want to follow your journey and especially catch up on your PCT journey on your Instagram, where are some of the places they can find you both on social media and online?
Yeah, so my Instagram account, which is the main place where you're going to see these pictures, is Switchback Jack. And then I also, during the PCT, was blogging for the trek. And I'm done now, but I'm still going to post a couple of things. I'm going to use it to post a couple of picture recaps, maybe a retrospective and some frequently asked questions, which should be coming out soon. So I can give you a link to that as well.
And we'll be sure to put those in the episode show notes so people can check it out. Jackson, it has been a blast speaking with you, and I'm really looking forward to the coming weeks and what you're going to be able to share about your PCT journey on your Instagram with not just the community, but with everybody that has that seed of, I want to do the PCT someday. I think what you did was amazing, and the fact that you're able to share not just through pictures but with words is really inspirational. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with us, and look forward to what 2025 has to offer for you.
Well, thank you so much. It's great being on here. I'm always happy to talk about the trail and about my experience, and so I appreciate you giving me a chance to do that.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Jackson. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for joining us on the podcast. Be sure to follow them on Instagram at Switchback Jack and by checking out the episode show notes. This episode of Hikes and Mics was produced by Jordan Smith. Be sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at jordan.journeys. New episodes will drop every Monday throughout the fall hiking season, with occasional Friday bonus episodes sprinkled in. To make sure you never miss a moment of these inspiring trail stories, hit the follow or subscribe button. Your support truly keeps this community growing. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. That's where you'll find behind-the-scenes episode visuals, my own hiking adventures, and plenty more to keep the fall inspiration flowing. As we wrap up today's journey, remember, the trails may be covered in leaves, but the spirit of adventure is wide open. So tread those happy trails, breathe in that crisp autumn air, and keep exploring. Until next time, my fellow hikers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.